So my name's Rebecca Kakis-Wolf. I don't know the majority of you, but I do know some of you. For context, I've kind of spent most of my corporate career on the corporate side running product marketing, and comms for bigger organizations. I started really early at Microsoft and then kind of ended on the Shell EV side of things a couple of years ago, running product marketing, comms, and traditional marketing there. And over the last year, I've kind of been doing side hustles, and that's creating salons and panels and speaking opportunities to actually bring clarity to work groups and to kind of demystify challenge points within organizations. And so I've been doing that just kind of as a comms person that loves to break apart harder things. So I met Deirdre in one of these conversations, and I know some of the great folks here within the Superset family. So with that, we're going to talk about how to stay in sync from a go-to-market perspective. And as was earlier said, kind of the purpose is to, GTM is all about creating customer advocates within your organization in different work groups and functions. But in doing that, we tend to be in silos. Things can get out of alignment really quickly. And we're all growth-oriented. So we're going to kind of break down some stereotypical problems. And I'd love to start with Nicole. Maybe you can introduce yourself, talk about your role, your company, and the size of company. Okay. And then we'll go down the line.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole Reese. I'm with Catch. I oversee enablement, and Catch is about 50 people, give or take. We are Series B, founded in 2020. We're focused on data privacy and data permissioning, and we help our brands to manage and collect permission data for growth.
Thank you. Jeremy.
Hey, I'm Jeremy. I'm co-founder and CRO of Symmetry. We're building a agentic marketing platform. Been around for about 5 months now.
Thank you.
And I'm Corey Trefletti. I'm the CMO for Rembrandt. You've heard about Rembrandt a couple times, so we'll not bore you with any more about it.
What's the size of the company?
We're about 55, I think.
Okay. Thank you. So let's get started. What was the last time your go-to-market team felt completely out of sync in one sentence? Start with you.
In one sentence?
It can be a long sentence.
Oh. I mean, so it's a startup environment, so I think about once every 3 months, once a quarter. Things get a little bit out of sync, which is why you have to consistently be doing those offsites with the leadership teams and the go-to-market teams, just because you have to make sure that you've realigned all the boats in the right direction. Because as you are out in market and you're hearing things, you're getting feedback, you're constantly changing and revising and refining positioning and messaging and storytelling and all of those things. You have to be able to bring that back in so the rest of the team can hear it and see it, because otherwise they will continue going off on tangents and momentum will carry them in different directions, and it gets wildly confusing. Period.
Period. Good. Do you find the same in your organizations, in current roles and in previous?
I think for us, we're so early that you inherently start out of sync, I think, and you have to find a way to get in sync, especially with the superset model where you might not have a relationship with these folks ahead of time. So very recently.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely agree. I feel like things are moving quickly. You need to stay aligned, stay on the same page. So it's really important in terms of having the right people at the right table and ensuring that that information moves downstream.
So carrying that theme, is the misalignment a people, process, operational thing, all of the above, and how do you address it within each of your organizations? And because you're in different sizes of organizations, maybe you can talk about kind of the tips and tricks that you have. Nicole, do you want to start, or Jeremy?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of people and process. I think people, they bring ideas, they bring priorities, but if their processes aren't clear, there's going to be a problem. So it's really important to ensure that we have clear processes in place, that we have crisp communication, and I think things will align on their own after we have those pieces in place.
Thank you for that. Just as a quick aside, I'm curious, as Nicole was talking, does anybody experience this in their own organizations today? Yes? No?
No, they're all perfectly aligned.
Amazing. Perfect. Jeremy, your thoughts? Like people, process, both? How do you define it?
I think it comes down to three things, actually. It comes down to motivation, incentives, and definitions. So they can fall into those different categories, but the folks in different parts of the org are motivated differently. Some are motivated by doing good work. Some are motivated by money or promotion or whatever it might be. A lot of times they're incentivized differently in terms of how their compensation structure is. And then if there's not alignment on the definition of what good looks like, then that can lead to a lot of issues as well.
Yeah, we talked about that in the prep conversation, and you really did go deep into the definitions being really core. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means, especially in your current company? When you're first starting out, how do you define a thing that's a KPI-driven kind of go-to-market component versus maybe an established company, and how those change?
Yeah, I think it's the same issues, actually. Those issues might just be less prevalent in the early stages because you haven't had a poor foundation of different definitions and lack of alignment around it. Yeah. I think the most obvious one is, okay, if marketing is tasked with MQLs and there's not an agreement on what an MQL is, or there's different types of MQLs. Maybe there's MQLs from webinars and there's MQLs from inbound, and maybe those perform differently. And so, one side wants to count all those as the same and one side doesn't. Then that can lead to lack of understanding of what good looks like again.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Corey, do you have any reflections?
Well, I think actually off of something you just said, because I had a different answer in my head from it, but you jogged something else in my head, which was that because people and process are important, but I think you have to also have a commitment to the definitions for a certain period of time, almost a persistence to that commitment. Because as you point out, like a sales and marketing organization, you may have an ingrained difference of what an MQL is defined as and what should happen with it from a process perspective. Mm-hmm. But you have to basically say, okay, even though we may not agree on what the definition is, we're going to stick to this process for 4 months, 6 months, and we're going to follow that through and see if that starts to generate the outcome. And if not, then you go back to a commitment to revisiting that process. But you can't ignore the process. You have to be persistently prosecuting the process in the same way so that you can try to figure out what worked and what didn't. And I think in some cases, people's egos will get in the way of the commitment to the definitions, and that can cause more problems than it fixes.
Interesting. You also, when we were prepping for this call, you also talked a lot about stage of product market fit. Can you comment a little bit more on that and what the differences are when you're seeking alignment?
Well, it was interesting because I didn't know that the sessions earlier that Omar was going to do was about the different definitions of product market fit. And it's interesting because you can be in the illusion of product market fit earlier than you thought you would. Like we had at one point, we thought we had product market fit because we had gotten 6 or 7 customers and they all had 100% renewal rate. But then we went back and we started to realize that all 6 or 7 of those were relationship-based accounts that we closed because we personally knew the people who were the decision makers. So we actually had this illusion of product market fit very, very, very quickly, which we then continued to get past and we figured it out. But the concept of basically knowing that you had to figure out what was going to be the stage that you were at, if you're further down the line, you can have more definitions that are instilled into the rest of the team, all the employees in the company, versus having to continually train them on what the new messaging, new storytelling is going to be, et cetera. So a company that's got a Series B and has got 15, 20 million in revenue is more committed to those definitions and committed to that process than somebody who's got $1 million in revenue and is trying to get to 10. You have to be more willing to, at the earlier stages, continue to morph and change those behaviors and those processes than you would be if you're at 10, 15, and 20 million.
No, that's great.
Make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Does anybody
I lost
have any
myself for a minute in there, actually. I was, what the hell am I talking about?
Does anybody have any questions so far, or comments, or no? Okay. As you were talking, we also discussed kind of the idea of remote versus kind of location-based individuals as you're growing teams and scaling and growing kind of GTM components within these environments. Curious what you see is a either gotcha or a positive, or how you actually seek alignment when you're dealing with diverse teams.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working remote for the past 8 years, and I think initially it was a little challenging because you're having this FOMO, right? I should be working extremely close with our product, our marketing folks, and we're all in different places. how do we address this? So we now have this thing called the Enablement Hopper. It's a weekly meeting, and we all come together and we share ideas in terms of or what the hot topics are. You know, what's top of mind for marketing, product? What do I need to know to ensure that it gets down to the go-to-market team? So I feel like in this day and age, it's possible. I think there is this perception that it's much easier when everybody's in the same place. And yes, to some degree, I agree to that. But we can work through the distance and make it work. It's just, it really takes discipline and commitment, and you can make it happen.
Thank you. When you're scaling your team like that, and you do have diversity in your team where they live, or maybe different working hours or different kind of cultural norms, what are some of the signals of misalignment, and how do you correct it?
I don't think it actually matters if they're remote or in person. I think if you have the foundations for all those things to be aligned or misaligned, it's going to happen either way. I mean, I think there was sort of like pre-COVID, it was more common for sales teams to be remote or at least be out of the office and marketing teams to be in the office. Now, that wasn't always true, but it was probably more common. And then since then, that's probably changed. But I don't think that's necessarily like a major contributing factor.
Sure. We talked when we were prepping about kind of other signals of misalignment, like people leaving an organization or wanting maybe changes in job capability or constant maybe reassurance about what success looks like in roles, surprises in meeting or erosion in trust. And in the last session, which just felt like a gift to hear, that was incredible, there was talk about kind of psychological safety. Is that something that you build into your go-to-market rhythms? And you talked a lot about empathy in marketing and kind of creating psychological trust when we spoke earlier.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if I understand the question, I don't think I understand the question.
Okay. So the last session was just so lovely, talking about like building a better emotional culture, right, and creating transparency. So I'm curious with when you've got complexity in your go-to-market teams, alignments, maybe competing KPIs, and all of those kind of variants, how do you build in that psychological safety to make sure that people can actually feel like they can do the best jobs? And
so in any startup,
align
there's
correctly.
this tendency for over communication. How many of you use Slack and email and text message? It's fucking overwhelming, right? There's so many ways to be in contact with people inside the teams, and you're constantly being bombarded with questions. I think that the empathy element has to be where you almost have a balance of setting guardrails. Like I know within my team, because we have some contractors and we have some people internally, and there's just a lot of communication that happens between sales, marketing, and product. Like that's the sweet trifecta that's most important. And I am always on edge to answer questions at any time of the day, at any day of the week, anywhere that I am. And the team, I think, in some respects is happy because they know that they can always get a hold of you and ask questions, but you also have to set some guardrails, and you have to be empathetic on the other end. Like, you can't bombard everybody else with questions at all hours of the day and all days of the week, because you have to give them some time to take a break, too. And I think that it's empathy in terms of being able to understand that, A, you don't have the answer to every question, so you shouldn't be expected to answer every question right immediately. Like, Slack is not intended to be, and text messages are not intended to be immediate gratification vehicles. They are intended to put something out there that you can respond to when you have the appropriate time to do so, but I think we've trained ourselves right now that you have to respond to everything right away. And I think the empathy component comes back with, it's okay not to have the answer, it's okay to have the answer later. And you don't want to instill this sense of immediate need in everybody's mind, because then they're always on edge. And I'm going to use an analogy that my wife will be very upset to know that I told you, but my wife has been going through this stage of life where the hormones are changing and everything else, and her doctor told her, like, you're constantly in a state of fight or flight. Your heart rate is always elevated because you're never able to relax, and it's partially because she doesn't sleep it well at night because of all that stuff. And we realized, like, if you got sleep, then your fight or flight mechanism comes down. And it's kind of the same thing at work, where you're constantly in a state of fight or flight, and you always have to be on edge that you're going to have to answer any question at any given moment. That creates a very, very difficult culture to operate in. And therefore, honestly, you're not thinking straight. You're not even taking the time to think at all. You're always just on edge because you have to respond. And I think in a startup environment, while you want to be able to be accessible to the team on a regular basis, you also have to be able to sit back and say, look, I don't need to answer everything at that second, because it's not going to be the right answer.
That's a great analogy. I'm curious, to show of hands, does anybody, is that a predominant feeling within your organizations, or is that, have you experienced that, this need to overreact or quickly react? Yeah, that's interesting. And probably the guardrails and the operational elements that you set up help. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I think sales and marketing are unique in the sense that everyone has an opinion about them. Probably marketing more so. Everyone thinks I'm a customer of advertising and
It's
marketing.
amazing
So
when you're a marketer.
So I know how to do this. And to a lesser extent, people think I've bought things before, so I know how to sell them. And that doesn't happen to the same extent with finance, or certainly not with engineering, right? No one's going to tell the engineers how they should code things if they don't know how to code. But so I think that can actually build empathy across sales and marketing in a unique way. And the byproduct of that is you get better results because there are things that marketing knows that sales can get benefit of. For example, they understand the market. They know what is getting people to click on ads, so that can help you understand what to write in your emails. They know what's getting people's attention and those things should translate to sales. But sales has also this knowledge actually talking to prospects and hearing from them. And if that's not getting fed back to marketing, then they're missing out as well. So certainly that is really important. I mean, I think like everyone on the go-to-market team should make at least 500 cold calls in their life. That's something that I believe strongly in.
I agree with that.
And it should go the other way too, right? The sales team should be forced to engage in marketing activities.
That's great. Thank you.
Jeremy, I agree with you. And one other piece of that I would add to it is our customer success team. They're working directly with the customers. They should feel comfortable sharing that feedback with product. And, it's a two-way street, so I really feel like all of these teams should be communicating, ensuring that the messaging is going to the right place at the right time.
Well,
I forgot about them because we only have one customer, but that's
yeah. Well, and also what was said earlier, right? When customer success talks, then sales and marketing just need to basically say, like, we heard you. We understand that.
Yeah.
Too often it just kind of goes, all right, thanks for that. Next.
Not our product team.
What's the recipe that you deploy in order to keep those lines of communication open? Like, what's your kind of rhythm of the business to keep open lines of communication for GTM going in your organization to share insights like that? How do you operationalize?
Yeah, so sitting in enablement, I sit in the middle of it all. I'm really trying to encourage that communication in terms of getting specifically our sales team to provide feedback. We want to make sure, or I want to make sure, that they're equipped to do what they need to do to be successful. So in order to do that, feedback is important. And I think having a cadence in terms of like whether it's a weekly, monthly, ensuring that they have the platform to provide that feedback. Customer success, it's a little different. I feel as though they have their own direct line into product. But sales specifically, I'm really focused on ensuring that we gather as much feedback as possible.
Do you have, like, just tactically speaking, like weekly stand-ups, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So we do. We have a weekly call that we started with our sales team, and we actually have somebody in there from product as well to help with the positioning of our products. We have a monthly call specific to enablement. We have topics that we will share with the sales and go-to-market team in terms of, if we have new product features or a specific product that we want to educate them on, we'll incorporate it into that call. And content is key too, just ensuring that everybody is aware of the new content that is rolled out and it's available for them to use. I feel like, content, to me, it's kind of an interesting topic because the way in early stage that folks were doing things, it doesn't necessarily scale once you start to grow. And content was being repurposed and it was stale. So sales guys, you can laugh at me, but I am a stickler when it comes to using the content that, I went through 400 assets and I'm like, guys, these are the pieces of content we need to use to ensure that everybody is speaking the same language and that it includes the most up-to-date information.
And you're trying to create repeatable successes with that brand message too, right? And that takes
100%.
How many impressions in order to land a brand message? It's a lot.
Absolutely.
Depends if they're paying attention.
Right. Jeremy, did you have any thoughts to add?
Yeah, I would say it actually comes down to sales enablement. Revenue operations is sort of the glue that hopefully binds that all together. And you can have meetings and stand-ups, and that could help. I think one that is especially helpful is capacity planning, and make sure that all three parts are involved in like annual capacity planning. And depending how that goes, right, maybe you get a number from your board, and now you got to figure out a way to create a bottoms-up approach to actually hit that number. And if everyone can kind of feel that together and understand it and start that process early enough that they can understand, okay, like our number doubled, maybe our sales team doubled, but our marketing budget didn't double. So what does that mean? Or I think a really common mistake with all this is we say like, okay, we need this many opportunities in this time frame, and we need this many MQLs to hit that. So here's our marketing budget, and not taking into account the lag between like setting that meeting, having it become an MQL, and having it turn into a deal, and just assuming that the money that you spend now turns into deals now and correlating it. I think that's actually a common like CEO sort of oversimplification. But that whole process, working on that together across revenue operations, enablement, sales, marketing, success, and making sure everyone's aligned on what's needed to hit those numbers.
That's great.
There's a key thing there too, and you're going to have a question thrown at you too. But this is a complicated set of things that have to happen. I think the other thing is about keeping it as simple as possible. Like you've done this as a marketer, you try to keep everything as simple as you possibly can, right? So that the message is simple, the process is simple for getting a customer through that journey to get him or her into an environment where they can continue to work with the product and be successful. Like we have to keep it simple, but we do tend to lean towards overcomplicating these things.
That's a great point. When that overcomplication happens and misalignment happens as a result of maybe overcomplication or market misses or product misses, what are the key signals of misalignment? Do you have those identified in your organizations? How do you know when you're off track from a go-to-market perspective?
The easiest answer to that is A, you missed your numbers.
Right.
But B, there's an intangible thing. You can talk to, like for me, I can talk to the sales team and I can listen to them do a pitch, and you can just tell if they're not aligned. You can just hear it in how they approach it and whether or not you can tell a story in 3 sentences or less. If you can't tell the story in 3 sentences and have someone nod their head, then there's something off.
Yeah, that's great.
I think if you go into a board meeting and let's say you have a CMO and a CRO in that board meeting, and the CMO is like, we crushed it, look at all this great stuff we did, we beat our number, and then the CRO is like, we're 30% to goal, that's usually a good sign.
Good.
Yeah, I think they covered. The only other thing I'd add are support cases. If our support cases spike, there's clearly something going on there in terms of, well, this isn't the product that we were sold. Mm-hmm. Okay, what happened?
Thank you, that's great. How does AI assist with solutions? Or does it?
Jeremy?
Is it today?
Well, we are creating AI for marketers.
Exactly.
However, I don't think this is a problem for AI. And yes, there can be tools, technology, AI that helps facilitate the solution, but this is inherently a people problem, and I don't think you solve it by throwing AI at it.
Yeah. I do think collaborative tools help a lot, though. And having AI built into some of the collaborative tools, like having everybody operate off the same set of materials and information, but also being able to have that central place where they can give feedback and it can alert other people about that. Like, if you remember what it was like to try and do stuff like sales enablement before the cloud-based collaborative tools, Roderick, you remember how difficult it was? Yeah, like that was just a disaster.
And you're talking about things like private LLMs, so we talked about that earlier.
Talking about like Microsoft Office in the cloud.
Oh, yeah.
And then Google Suite. Like, before that, this was a disaster.
But you also talked about when we were prepping centralized knowledge bases, so things that AI and LLMs can do to actually improve productivity or content creation or things like that.
Absolutely.
Access.
Yeah, I mean, for me specifically, AI has been a game changer. It's helped me to take massive amounts of information and just bring it all together, in the form of whether it's a lesson or it's a one-sheet or talk track for sales. So it's really helped me in terms of getting my job done faster. But there is the human element too. I mean, I feel like you need a human to actually interpret what's coming out of the LLM and take those insights or that information and act on it.
Yeah. Yes.
So not everyone in your team might be that tech savvy to use AI. How you introduce new tools for people in your team, especially this like AI, so you need to dive into this.
Fortunately, I don't have a team, so I've had to do it myself.
You look in the
figure it
mirror
out.
and you say, we're going to do this today.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's just so many great resources out there, and I've had to become resourceful and figure it out on my own. But if I did have a team, I think there is a level of training that you would need, and to ensure that they are following the specific processes. I actually came up with a whole list of tools and tech that our go-to-market team is using. One, for enablement, just to ensure they have the logins they need, but I also included a resource for them in terms of how to get started.
Yeah, but do you have any advice how to encourage them to use it? So you can provide this, but...
I would just say, like, what I've done in the past is usually we'll do a meeting every other week where we're just kind of showing things. And the trick is to not show too many things at once. It's just to show one thing, like, hey, did you know that we could use this tool to do this? Let me show you. And then let that simmer for a couple more weeks and let people get used to it. Because what happens is when you show somebody something, they typically will listen to you, and then maybe they'll absorb 25% of that. But then they'll go mess around with it later, and then they'll go mess around with it again. And then usually what happens is that by the second or third time that they've kind of interacted with that tool, they'll come back and say, oh, I get it now. And they have that epiphany moment, and then they start to use it. And then you let that happen for a month. And then in a month, you can bring back and say, hey, tell me what you've learned and how you're using it, but let me show you one other thing now. And it's a slower process than we probably would like it to be, but it is still significantly faster than them just bumbling around trying to figure it out themselves.
Along those lines, and this is something that Kimber and I used to actually see in the agency side, is when you actually bring in new agency partners or showcase new technologies and you are kind of workshopping them around like that, how do you then make the decision to operationalize certain capabilities and change maybe a structure that you currently have with older technologies into newer tech? Because that's what we all want to do, right, with the capabilities that you're selling. So I'm just curious how you help influence that.
You're saying when an agency comes in and...
Well, when Corey was talking about how you might showcase new tools to your teams, right?
Yeah, I mean, the way I would answer it is you don't. You don't operationalize it. You let the team operationalize it. Because if you say, here's a tool we're going to adopt, it's almost never fully adopted. But if you start to show people that here's some interesting tools you can start to use,
more democratic,
and they start to use it, they start to use it, it hits critical mass, and you'd be like, okay, well, 80% of the team is using that. I guess that's now operationalized.
I love it.
But if you top down it, it never works right.
Yeah. So even then, when you're influencing a sale, like you're gonna do, will you have that kind of influencer model when you go in and try to sell your technologies? Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's different if internally and externally. If you could say internally, hey, this person is producing more, selling more, generating more revenue than everyone else, and they're using these tools, okay, let's replicate what they're doing.
Yep.
But externally, that works as well, and marketers certainly want to do what other marketers are doing and are seeing success with. So yeah, if you could say, hey, this is how this brand is doing things, and look what they're achieving, then that's really powerful.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, while I was at Salesforce, we always had this, we called it with them, the what's in it for me. So in order to get somebody to adopt something, you really have to help them understand what they're going to get out of it.
That's great. Thank you. So we talked a little bit about the human element, the communication, and the I'm curious, and it's not really a technical solve. Do you think that GTM teams are spending more times in meetings, outside of meetings? Is the rhythm right? Are you all spending too many times in meetings trying to synchronize? Are there best practices that you can actually share or observations?
Who has too many meetings? Raise your hand. And who has too many internal meetings? I mean, raise your hand. Oh, almost no one. It's just a couple people. That's kind of surprising.
It is a little surprising, yeah.
I think too many.
Okay. So what do you do? What are some opportunities?
Well, I think you got to establish like which meetings are valuable, what problems are you trying to solve, why do you need to have so many, that sort of thing. But just like adding more meetings to hopefully to try and solve the problem is typically not going to actually do it.
Yeah, you got to get a little pickier. I will tell you, I was in a meeting the other day, and I know this has happened, and this sounds like a cliche, and this is sort of funny though. I was in a meeting with 3 people, and there were 7 AI note takings. because then 4 of those people didn't show up, and they just sent the damn note-taking tool.
Oh, I love that. That's
And
funny.
we actually just specifically tried to mess with their AI tools by saying the most inappropriate things for them, which is probably an HR violation, but that's fine. They'll get the transcripts later. But I do think you have to start to get choosy about what you're going to be in. But if there are, like, for example, I can't make all the product meetings that our product team does, but I do try to make sure that I sit down with our head of product once a week and say, okay, what did I miss? Because he's really good at telling me the short version of what was talked about in a 45 to an hour meeting. So I think you just have to build in the lines of communication for at least the recap component. And I will do, in all honesty, some of those AI note-taking tools are good if they're doing the summaries, and you can get that summary afterwards. Like, that can help you to get some information that you couldn't have been able to get otherwise.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing too with meetings, like, don't schedule a meeting without an agenda. If I get an invite and there's no agenda in there, it just bothers the heck out of me because I don't know what I'm showing up for. So give people the opportunity to decide, is this something that's going to benefit them? And if they can attend, at least there will be, the meeting notes coming out of it as well.
So wanted to talk a little bit about the go-to-market product sync, just because that's incredibly critical. And was just from your experiences in your organizations, how often are product owners involved in your go-to-markets? Are they just always included? I know it's easier when it's smaller. And then how are the feedback loops measured within those product organizations? How are you really synchronizing between go-to-market and product?
Yeah, they're very involved for us at this stage, but even at a later stage, I think it goes back to, okay, all these people in the process, marketing, sales, CS, have this different perspective and expertise, right? We talked about, sales understands the prospect, but CS understands the customer more than anyone else, which is actually what we really care about, not the prospect. So if all of that is not getting brought back to the product team, then the go-to-market team as a whole is failing in a way.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had mentioned I have a sync with marketing and product. It's our enablement hopper, but we also have a weekly sync with representatives from customer success, marketing, product. So I feel like there's a lot of communication happening there, and ideally, the information that's being shared is getting passed along to the appropriate people coming out of that meeting.
How, and I'm saying this just based on my knowledge of being at Oracle, and there was something kind of interesting within that culture. There was an inbound product management and an outbound product management that was coupled with product marketing. And that happens in some companies that can scale. So you've got a really technical kind of product person that's coupled with your marketing person. I'm curious if you see that as a need as you scale. So because product marketing becomes an all-encompassing talent, I guess, and some people are better storytellers and comms people or packagers, or then they might be roadmap owners and feature owners.
I think it's an interesting question because, and Roderick and I actually, we talked about this just a little bit earlier because I asked them the same kind of a question. I think we're getting to a state right now where the people, specifically for marketing as an example, you're hiring generalists with expertise, if that makes sense. You're not hiring experts anymore. For example, I'm not going to hire an SEO person ever again because I don't think it's necessary, and I think an AI tool can actually help with that. And I feel
Ours
like...
can.
What's that?
Ours can.
Well, I just feel like there are so many AI tools now that you can use that will accelerate the learning process for a product marketer to become more technical, and he or she can speak more technically very, very quickly by using the AI tools, that I don't know you need as many people in the organization to do all those different roles. Like when you talk about Oracle, 3 heads, now one of those people could do all 3 heads worth of that work. And I just think that we're quickly going to a stage where those generalists are become more experts in more functional areas than they ever used to be.
That's great. Thank you for that context. I know that we're coming out of time. Definitely want to give questions. I do want to ask one other question, just because there's there's just a reality of insourcing versus outsourcing, and we talked a little bit about this in the prep. But which parts of go-to-market process should remain in-house for alignment purposes? And discuss the trade-offs. You can start with maybe Corey. Sorry.
I just think that the storytelling component, the positioning component, should always be in-house. Pretty much the rest of it is at your discretion. I think it just depends on this. Also, going back to the cop-out of all this is the stage of your business, the maturity stage of your business. Because for me right now, I don't necessarily know what we're going to need in a year, so I haven't hired anybody full-time. I have all contractors and all flexible work staff so that I can easily shift from one to the other without having to worry about letting people go and so on and so forth.
Are you saying that about just the marketing side or the sales side too?
Sales, actually, well, I probably wasn't going to answer for sales, but what do you believe, Jeremy?
Well, I think I've never heard of someone really having success with outsourced BDRs or SDRs. There's a lot of companies that claim that, but I've never seen it personally. So that's one that I think if you're going to do it, it's got to be in-house.
I probably would agree with that.
Can I actually ask a clarifying question? But why? Is that to maintain the brand promise, be really close to the heart of the business? Why is that hard to outsource? Both of those.
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. I think one, it comes back to incentives, right? So they are not incentivized to maintain your domain authority, and they just want to spam out emails, and right, they just want short-term results that don't necessarily benefit you as a brand long-term. I think also it's hard to all of a sudden just get pointed at a new company and a new product, and I think you're going to be able to just like plug in outreach and have it work successfully. So there is something that's required there in terms of learning and ramping and understanding all those pieces. There's
almost an emotional investment that's required for a salesperson to be emotionally invested in the company, the brand, and the product.
Thank you for that. Nicole, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just touch on in terms of outsourcing, we outsource our creative, our design work, and it works really well. I'm just so impressed how these designers can take a vision and turn it into a reality. So that's what's working for us currently.
Thank you for that. Okay, so final question, really quickly, just go down the line. What's one alignment habit that you'd keep even if your budget was cut in half? Nicole? Okay. Or Corey?
I can go.
Habit.
Yeah, start in the middle.
One habit.
I would say it goes back to capacity planning. I think that is one of the most powerful alignment tools, and is surprising how much it's skipped to do it across the whole go-to-market org.
Thank you.
I'm going to say patience and persistence of communication. You have to be doing it. You have to be doing it every single week, and you're going to have to be repetitive on some things, but you got to commit to it no matter what. It is free.
And it's free.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I know there's time involved and resources, but I wouldn't give up this enablement hopper call for anything. It's really important for, especially me, just to be in the middle and in the know of what's going on between marketing and product.
And all of those suggestions don't cost anything. That's amazing. Thank you. Any questions?
I'm wondering about passion that helps you to sell. If in the past, like you use some interesting tool or something that's very effective, like Broom, you can try it. It works perfectly, and you can go and sell it because you believe that it works, it helps you. But now when we build this like B2B products, SaaS products that we don't use, we are not customers for those products. How to build this passion, how to build this empathy to your customers, which tool the most effective for you? All of these meetings, synchronizations, AI, whatever.
I'll just take 1 second. It's actually a really, really good question. I don't know that you can. Like, I went and worked in fintech for a while, and I wasn't passionate about it. I was fine at it, but I really like advertising, and I really like media. And being a customer of the place that you work at, it is easier to sell something that you're passionate about. Now, you can maybe people are really good at faking it, but I do think that as you hire people, you'll find people that really have an intrinsic knowledge about the category that you're in. They just perform better. They do very, very well.
So if the question, though, was also how do you understand what your customers need and then build around that, especially if you're maybe not passionate or maybe don't understand it completely yourself. I actually took a course at Stanford about a year ago that was empathy and product design. That was through their design D school, the D school. And it really just it was a great, fun refresher for me because in marketing, you're always dealing with personas and use case development and really understanding the empathy for your customer and all of the like characteristics and heuristics for how they shop, care, buy, and what their life is, and then deploying solutions associated with that. And we did a ton of that at Oracle as well. It doesn't always work, right? But that's a good way to try to build in empathy. 2 cents.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just to, kind of piggyback off of that, we've been talking a lot about, customer stories, identifying their pain points, and really being able to track them back to, the empathy. And we understand, and we actually are working with customer A that has similar issues just to help them resonate and reassure them, like, we can solve your problem. We have the solution for you. And I'm hoping, that's working for our sales folks. Still time to tell, but I think it's really important to show that understanding and empathy. And somebody had mentioned it earlier, listening, being curious, doing less speaking and more listening. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I think the product side is a big challenge in MarTech companies, right? Because engineers think and use products very differently than marketing folks. And if they're building it the way that they would want it, then that's not probably how the marketers would want it. But same thing on the sales side. I think the answer is you've got your marketing team, who is your customer in that case, in-house, and so you should be leveraging them to get feedback.
Yeah, that's a great point. Does that answer your question?
More like I have a question about like how you can build this through the like empathy as a sales team. Like you're selling something, you're not building this tool. You're selling how to feel your customers to whom like you sell. How
Or also have the product people go out on the sales call. That's usually a lot of fun to watch, just to see the interactions with the people in the room.
yeah, they're more talkative than engineers, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've got 2 questions. One directly for you, Nicole, and then the second is for the group. The first is, and we were talking about this earlier, enablement seems to become, in some cases, the fixers of broken things and broken people, right? So how do you take that hopper? I get paid to do this. All right, is that better?
Yeah.
So how do you take that hopper meeting that you do and turn it into application? And then how do you put metrics around whether or not it's been successful?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a problem solver at heart. I love to fix things, but as we were talking about, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed,
So how do
and
you
can't
prioritize?
fix everything. And that's the key, right? How do you prioritize? And I think it's really ensuring that I'm aligned with product, with marketing and sales, and understanding what are the pain points. How do we prioritize those in terms of what is the impact it's going to have? And we all have to come to an agreement, like these are the things we're going to work on. And then the measurement part, well, I mean, the numbers will tell, right? And I think that's really important for us to stay close to our sales and, how we're doing from that aspect.
Perfect. And I want to double tap on that last piece about staying close to sales. And so this is for the group. And it's a 2-part question. One, how frequently should marketing be going out with sales? Now let's go reality. How frequently does it actually happen?
I think often is the answer, and I think like for us, it's happening every day. I think as you grow and get bigger, it's easy to kind of think that we understand everything now, we know our customer, we know our market, and we don't need to keep doing that, and that's a trap to fall into for sure.
Now, is that happening from a lagging or leading indicator perspective? And the reason I ask is, it's one thing if you're sitting and you're listening to calls that happened versus being a part of those live calls and hearing this directly from the prospect or from the client and being able to address it at that point.
So you're saying, is sales pulling marketing into the calls, or is marketing demanding to be there? Is that the question?
Yes, to both.
I think it should be coming from both sides, like you said.
But how frequently is it actually happening?
Well, see,
And I'm saying broadly. I know you say you guys are closer.
this is a.
So it's a chicken and egg thing,
Well,
right?
no, this is actually a very skewed group to ask, right? Because you're going to probably, with you and say like Steven and whoever else, they're going to go out and sell every single day. I probably do 50% the number of sales calls as our CRO does, which still means I'm doing 5 to 10 a week easy. Because we're all in the very early stages of the business. Plus, I think you've got a room full of people here that are capable of being like, marketers that should be able to go out and sell. I will never hire a marketer that's not willing to go to a sales meeting and pitch. And by the same token, I think you said it, every salesperson thinks that they're a marketer at heart, and they're going to tell us how to do our job anyways. So I think you find those people that kind of straddle both sides of that no matter what. Yeah, I think it happens all the time.
Final question for you, Corey, is because you're out there and moving around and this is happening, now when you come back and you see your sales and your marketing teams together, would you say they're connected or they're collaborative?
Huh. That's a good question. I would say that they're actually collaborative because, once again, it's a very small group of people that have actually worked together in the past. I think that that's the X factor in that statement is that if you, and everybody here mostly, look, what I've seen is that the superset teams are very much like we're hiring people from other companies that you already know. I don't know how many people you're working with that you never worked with before. So I think if you've worked with people before, you've built up some sort of chemistry, you've built some sort of relationships, you kind of know how you operate. I think this is an environment where those teams are mutually admiring each other and working together. But when you go to an Oracle, when you go to some other company, you get acquired into a big company, you will quickly fall into a rut where those teams are siloed and they're differentiated and they don't talk to each other. So I think that comes back to the stage of maturity, size of the business, et cetera.
I was just going to say, regardless, though, it's operationalizing that feedback loop and mechanism, right? Because you're going to have capacity issues in smaller companies, for sure. Not everybody can be everywhere. So, is there one more question? Do we have time? Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Is the microphone back there? Okay.
Yeah. Was curious if each of you, to the extent it's relevant, could go into some detail on the pitfalls of transitioning out of founder-led sales into building an actual org around sales. I'm sure there are a lot of things that can go wrong as I think about doing that now. So it would be curious, any things that you've seen personally or have heard stories of, obviously how to avoid them.
The only thing I'll say is this, that most startup founders have a pretty healthy ego. And
Confirmed.
yes. And also, ego is the root of all evil. So you have to find startups whose ego is willing to be put aside for the betterment of the storytelling and the company. So what that means is that as it goes from a startup-led founder sale to a team sale, the founder has to be willing to let go a little bit and say, okay, my story does not have to be the predominant story. The story can evolve, and it becomes different between being a prescriptive story and the descriptive story. Like, I can tell everybody how to sell everything the way that I do, but that's not going to work for anybody else. So you have to actually allow the story to evolve a little bit, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think two other common pitfalls is it depends. So if the founder or CEO, in this case, let's say, was able to make all those sales because they knew all these people and it's their friends and it was easy to get them on, and then you assume we're going to do this same thing but with people we've never met, then that's not going to be a recipe for success. The other, I had a CFO that called them like CEO deals, right? Like if the CEO is coming in and saying, hey, you can have these payment terms and this contract structure and this pricing, and now we're going to scale this, but we're going to do it all with these like standardized terms, then that's probably not going to work either.
So for the past year, I've been consulting a lot, and I'm I've had more experience on the bigger corporate side of things, and then I've been consulting for smaller companies in a multitude of different capacities, and I've actually gotten involved in sales, and I'm a marketing and product marketing person. And what I did find one founder that is actually looking at this problem because he wants to go and work on other things and scale the business is that he's actually set up a pretty significant knowledge base of videos, content, and basically training modules to basically brain dump what he knows. And then he has training sessions and train the trainer sessions, which just tactically speaking feels like a good operational best practice. And then he's got weekly check-ins, so he keeps the door open quite a lot. And then he flanks some of the sellers in at least initial calls initially.
Round of applause.
Oh, a round of applause.